it maybe if you change your standard a little bit more. I know the conversation kind of went off into interracial dating, and would you date a white guy, or your options open for this, or whatever the case may be. But would your options broaden if you're more open to changing your standards, knowing that maybe your standards haven't worked thus far?
Possibly.
Not necessarily, because I think we want to be pleased. Like our standards are not that high, if you see. But I think there's less men available than you all know or think. Like there really is. But our standards are not that high, Gunny. It's just we just want what we want. We can't. It's hard to be with somebody you're not physically attracted to, and
Right.
He doesn't have to look like Boris Kojo or anything, but it's hard to kiss him. It's hard to be next to him. You don't want him to touch you if it's not necessarily someone you're like, you want to be physical with. So
yeah, and I definitely agree with that. And on that note, I'm glad you brought that point up, because I was the one that made the comment probably about 30 minutes ago about the whole unfat thing. I don't know if you guys remember that or not. I made the comment about you got to bring certain things to the table, and one of those things was being overweight. So you have your standard, I have my standard, and you're perfectly fine with having your standards. But as men, we have certain standards too. But when we bring our standards to the table, that might be offensive to certain women. It's the same
to certain women. It was offensive because you're a married man speaking in a comment about somebody that you don't know. And at the end of the day, my whole thing is, yes, men have standards, women have standards, and I don't think anybody should change their standards. The thing is, you need to get with somebody that's attracted to who you are, bottom line. And if you are attracted to them, so be it. And if they're not attracted to you, it is okay.
But there's still a general standard, and I am a married man, right?
There's not a general standard. You have a standard. If you don't want to date somebody fat, then that's your choice. That's your standard. That does not mean that Hampton doesn't like a big woman. You don't know that.
So okay. So there's no general standard. Do you want a man that's a protector and a provider?
I do, but that does not.
That's a general standard.
No, it's not. The general standard is you.
Well, why is it not? Why is that not a general standard? A protector and a provider.
Because my way of security and protection is going to be different than love. It's going to be different than Sis. It's going to be different than Big Lex. It's going to be different than Tay. It's going to be different than Aisha. Aisha likes a man that got a little street in him. I don't like a dude that got a little street in him. I like somebody that protection to me is you being able to pay your bills on time. That's protection. That's my standard.
Do you think? And you got to give me time to talk, because you got to give me room to speak. Do you think that if I ask the other 5 women on the panel if they want a protector and a provider, will they say yes or no?
They will, but it's going to be different. That's
okay. So let me. Can I give you the follow-on question? Can I give you the follow-on response to the question? You said they probably will, which means yes, they will. That's a general standard. There's nothing wrong with a general standard for women, but there seems to be a general standard for a problem with it being a general standard for men. And you find it offensive that a married man like myself, has a general standard that lines up with men that are single, the same way that your general standard as a single woman lines up with a woman that is married. Because I can go in there right now and I can ask my wife, would she want a provider or protector? She would say yes. So that's a general standard. So no, it's not offensive. It's not disrespectful. It's selective outrage, because you find it offensive coming from a woman's standpoint, but you find a problem with me doing the same thing that you're doing from a man's standpoint.
So are you saying that generally speaking?
I'm sorry. I have a problem with a married man saying he is aligning himself with a single man, because your standards should be different. Because
it's not.
It is, because your standards should be in line with a married man and not.
My son is single. What are you talking about? My son is an adult, single man. So the standards that I have for myself as a married man, I'm going to have for my son, who's a single man. I'm going to tell him to look for the exact same thing that I expect.
What your standards are.
So can I just say, I think
I'm
there's
sorry,
overgeneralization.
we were talking over each other. My apologies. I want to give you the opportunity to speak, and then I'll say my piece.
I think there's an overgeneralization, and maybe that's where it's coming from, because to overgeneralize and say single men don't like bigger women. A lot of single men do. And so you can't sit there and say, let's start off by having an unfat woman or whatever you said. You can't make that assumption that being the starting point is where I'm going to come from in this particular statement, because some men do like bigger women. And so you can't overgeneralize that. In addition to what Rotondo Rowe was saying, is definitions of what a protector and provider is different amongst women. So how she defines a protector is different how I define a protector. So again, there may be a standard in the word, but not in how it's applied or implemented in the relationship.
Okay, so let's go with the starting point, right? So we go with the starting point of, as a man, what are we looking for in a woman right off the top? So we might have 2 or 3 things that we're looking for right off the top. And there's nothing wrong with having 2 or 3 key things that we're looking for right off the bat. The problem comes in is when we start identifying those things and women take offense to it because they don't fall into that group. If as a woman, you want a protector and a provider, and I'm a bum and I'm a dirtbag and I don't have anything going on for myself, of course, if I fall into that group, of course I'm going to be offended by it. So what's wrong with identifying with the standard that I think that all men have? We all view aesthetics as one of the key things that we look for in women.
But
how she looks.
Your viewpoint of aesthetic is maybe different. And again, with what Rose said is, you as a married man shouldn't be saying we are looking for, because you aren't looking for anything. You're married. So
but I'm a man.
But you're a married man. And so what she said was, you aligning yourself with a single man and what they're looking for is problematic. And
no, it's not. I'm speaking for what men want in women. I'm allowed to speak for that because I can identify
what all men want, though, Gunny, is the point. So when Hamp asked us what we were looking for, we said what we were individually looking for. And as you saw, if you listened, it was a plethora of different examples and criteria. We didn't sit there and say, we all want this, we all want that, right? And then there was also a follow-up question is, if you couldn't get that, then what would you be willing to get rid of? So yes, there may be a list, but we also realize that there's some things that we can't get 100% of that. So again, it's just problematic. The statement was problematic because what you consider fat, some may consider healthy. So you consider, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, you done on that point? I just want to make sure.
I just want to sit there. And the last point is this: you can't sit there and say, let's be unfat first, because your definition of fat may not be the definition of what another man's fat is. That's all.
So just on that point, whatever hold on. Mike Brown with the $2 super chat. I'm unmarried and I agree with Gunny. Oh, he said I'm married. Sorry. So I'm married too, and I also agree with Gunny because we have single friends and we've been single previously. So we understand that men have preferences. Now, what certain men can obtain is one thing, but the preferences align pretty well. Does all mean all? No. But if somebody's telling you that, even if you don't like how it's worded, please understand that men have that preference. The majority of men have that preference for a woman to be as fit as she can be. But if they don't have, now they may not be there, right? And so you'll go ahead, Asia, because you keep on trying to unmute. Go ahead. I thought you want to jump in. Go ahead.
I was moving my microphone out the way because I had.
I thought you wanted to jump in. I thought you had a point on that specifically. All right. So yeah. So I don't want y'all to deflect though, because it's real. That's a real thing. And yeah, you can find a couple men that you don't have to get in shape for. But as you go up in scale in terms of the value of a man, that is very important. Your aesthetic. It just is.
Now I did come off on mute because I believe that you were done. I just want us collectively, and I say us, including you, Hamp, as well, and the other men, to acknowledge the fact that your definitions can vary. And and that's all I'm saying. So your definition of being healthy, so there could be a woman that is 200 pounds, but she is flexible as heck and can run a whole half a mile, and you can't, and you're small. So let's be okay. I'm talking because I was being respectful. I did not interrupt y'all when y'all were talking. So there are women, I have seen them, that are 200 pounds. They are bigger and they can do splits. They're very cardiovascular in shape. So all I'm saying is that doesn't mean that she's unhealthy. She may not fit the definition of the BMI of the United States American Heart Association BMI or whatever. Neither do I, honestly. I don't either. A lot of Black women don't. I know I don't, but I'm still considered skinny. If someone's look at me. Also, I look sick because I'm so skinny to some men. So some men may look at me and be like, you are too little and you don't look healthy, whatever. And I've been told that before. But other men, again, don't necessarily subscribe to that. And they can be outliers, that's fine. But the outliers do exist. And overgeneralizing and kind of shaming a subset or upset of women that are not according to your size standards does not necessarily mean that they aren't attractive to their person. That's all.
No, Asian. So that the key is, and I don't think that was said. There are always outliers, but you cannot solve for outliers. So if you know you can't solve for outliers, then you want to err on the side where more people are, on the side where more people exist. Right. So if you are out of shape, do your best to get in shape. That's the point. Because being in shape and striving, right, actually has more attributes than just you being skinny. That's determination and discipline as well. So there's things that go along with people being obese that you got to understand. 49%, right? We're the most obese people in the country. If you look at Brown Sugar and Foxy Brown, we weren't always like that. We got to stop deflecting. So like Pam Grier, if you look at them, they weren't out of shape and fat and all this other stuff. So we got to stop acting like we got to be. No, we can be better.
But do you acknowledge the fact that there are some skinnier, thinner women that are super out of shape, but they're still smaller?
And I would like to comment on that. And based off your example, what Ham just said, that is true. There are super skinny women that are out of shape. And there are some 200-pound women that could run a half a mile. But you're talking about the minority. You're using the minority to justify the majority. And that's intellectually dishonest. It is. It's intellectually dishonest because you're using the minority to justify the majority. Most 200-pound women can't run up a half a mile. They can't do it. Physically, they can't. They just can't. And respect to the fact that some women that can, but that doesn't mean that all women can. And I think that's the problem in what you're saying. Respectfully.
I'm gonna say this because
let me just read the super chat real quick, bro, and then you can jump in. Mike Brown with the $5 super chat. You're wrong on this one, Asia, and you want a man that's in shape. Why are you defending this?
Let me